Hello and welcome back to another tasty Blender tutorial. So today we're taking a look at how to create this modern looking vase by using Booleans. We'll also learn a couple of tricks to make your Booleans cut much smoother. So make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot. And as always, you will have a free resource file available for download from my Gumroad in the description. Okay, so let's get into it. So I have my Blender 2.93 open. I don't have the screencast keys add-on yet, so I'll just be guiding you through the whole process. In our case, we're just going to delete everything by pressing A and then X, so we have a clean slate. Go into front view by pressing numpad 1, Shift A, and add a cube. This is going to be the base for our vase. So I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm going to add a UV sphere, and this UV sphere is going to be our vase. So when I haven't selected like that, I'm just going to press GZ, hold Control, and then just move it up so it's half inside of the cube and half outside of the cube, like so. And then I'm just going to select the cube and scale it on the X, like that. So we have this sort of slim shape. When I'm done with that, I'm just going to rescale the sphere again slightly. I'm just going to hold Control and maybe move it for an increment, maybe another one, something like that. When I'm done with both, I'm just going to press Control A, reset the scale, or rather apply the scale. We can also do another thing at this point. I'm going to go into the side view. Just going to press Tab to enter edit mode. Then I'm going to press Z to enter wireframe. C to select the vertices, bottom for vertices, and in my side view, I'm just going to press GZ and then hold Control and move them so they are flush with the Y and the X axes, like so. Shift Control Alt C, set the origin to geometry. I think you can also find it in the object, so set origin, geometry, origin to geometry. And another thing we're going to do, Control A and apply the scale. Perfect. Now, before we move on to model our vase and base, I'm just going to Shift D, duplicate the vase. And you'll see why in a couple of minutes. This vase, I'm going to rename it Vase Difference, so I know which object I'm using. I'm just going to select all of the objects in my scene. I'm just going to make them a bit larger. Let's say S Control, and I'm going to scale them to 1.5, like that. Move them again so they are flush with my X and Y, so everything is nice and precise. And now I can actually just apply the scale, hide the vase difference, and model my vase. It's going to be fairly simple. Just going to go into edit mode, Alt, Shift, and then right click to select the loop. And while holding Shift, you can also select the inner vertex. Press E to extrude, so we have a tube-like vase, if it can be called that. And while having everything selected, you just press X and then delete the faces, like so. Now, I want to just model this thing a bit. I just shade smoothed it by pressing W, shade smooth, add modifier, and I'm going to add a bevel, a subdivision, and quite possibly a solidify, but I'm going to move it before the actual bevel, so it looks like that. Let's increase this a bit, so it's 0.05. Mode, instead of simple, put it to complex, and then boundary set to round. It's going to round out the edges a bit more. The amount, we can just drop it to, let's say, 0.006, something like that. It should be fine. The viewport, you can leave it at 1 for the viewport subdivision and 2 for the render. It's going to be completely fine. Maybe it's a bit too thick, so we can just bring it back, 0.039, something like that. Should work perfectly. For our base, we're going to do the same, so just the bevel, we're going to put a subdivision surface. We can bump this subdivision to 2, W to shade smooth, so we see what's going on. Segments, bump them to 2, and then the amount, drop it to, let's say again, 0.03, so we have sort of the similar amounts of cutting. Now, for our cut, we want to have a cut. If I go into wireframe, you can see that our rectangle is still there. I want to have this shape, cut a shape into this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a Boolean. And this Boolean, I'm not going to select the vase, but I'm going to select the vase difference. So let me hide the vase for a second, and you can see what's happening. You can see the faces of our vase difference. But you can also see this strange artifaction, and you've probably tried a couple of times just increasing the levels of your viewport, but it's not working. What you need to do is go into your object data properties and then go under normals and click on auto smooth. And that's going to take care of any sort of subdivision problems with shading. But now you might be asking, it's still very, very not precise. It's kind of strange. So what you want to do is go into your Vase difference and just add a subdivision surface like so. And you can then increase your levels viewport. You can also do the shade smooth, so it's going to be much, much, much more precise. So for your viewport, I would usually suggest not going too crazy because otherwise you're going to have a bunch of lag. You would rather select just the render 4 to 5, so it's going to be mega flush, and then just reopen your Vase difference. And now if I go into wireframe, you can see that the cut is precisely where it needs to be. So that's why we've copied the initial object. Now, another thing I want to point out here, when you will want to render this, you need to turn it off. So you want to go into your object properties, which is this yellow square. We're going to go under visibility and just tick renders, meaning it's not going to show in your renders. Now, last thing we need to do is just texture this and maybe put an HDRI, a simple HDRI, and render it out. So in order to prepare our file, I would like to just turn off the Boolean for a sec because otherwise it's going to be a bit laggy. So I'm going to go into my render properties and change to cycles. The device, I'm going to set it to GPU. You can take a look at one of my videos where I explain more in depth my render settings, and you can take a look there how I usually take care of it. So I'm going to go into front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. I'm going to add a plane like so. Maybe we can make it just a bit bigger. I'm going to add another plane and just move it on the Y, so it's in the back. This is going to be my background. Rotating it on the X by 90 degrees by pressing R and then X. And now I'm just scaling it up so it closes nicely in the back. Back into front view, press 1 on the numpad to go into front view, Shift A, and add a camera. And this adds the camera directly where you're looking. So if I press 0, now I'm in my camera view. Press GY to move the camera, and now I can just press GY, Z, and position my camera where I want it to. I usually have some problems with composition, so in this case I'm just going to go under my object data properties, which is this camera icon over here, viewport display, composition guides, and I'm going to use thirds. So when I'm positioning my object, I usually use this. So I'm trying to find a good composition for my camera view, like so. I want to keep the vase in the middle, and I want to have the bottom, see the bottom line, intersect with the background in the back. So this is how I usually go about my compositions. In this case, I'm just going to turn it, select the whole thing. You can also select the vase difference in our case. So the whole group R, Z, and then just rotate it on the Z. So it's going to be a bit more visible from the side. It's a nice, say, composition trick. I can keep it in the center, or I can just choose it and move it, let's say, to this third, so to the line of the third, or to this line. Here, it's a bit too striped. I don't know how to explain it. It's a bit too claustrophobic. So I'm just going to move it here, like so. I'm going to go into my render settings, so render region. This is going to be fine for now. And now it's time to just set up a very simple light. In my case, I'm going to set up a HDRI by going into my world, color, and then choosing environment texture and opening an HDRI file. Okay, so I think we're good to go. I have my veranda. It's from HDRI Haven. We've got render region ticked, which means that only the view in the camera is going to be rendered. Shift Z, and let's render this bad boy. Cool. It looks kind of cool, I have to admit. So this is the map. I can just move the background a bit closer in my case. I don't want to have the light spill from the bottom, but yeah, looks kind of legit. So now it's time to actually set up the materials. So let's do that very quickly. Just going to divide my screen. Choose this to be the shader editor. Press N to hide the sidebar. And in my case, I'm going to go under my material properties, click on new. And this is going to be my glass material. So let me go into my rendered view so I can see what's happening. I'm going to increase the base color to be 1. Roughness, I can pop it down to 0.07, 0.05, something like that. So you can see a good amount of reflection. And then I'm just going to pop the transmission to one, like that. And I have a very simple glass shader. This is going to be completely fine for what we're doing right here. Otherwise, you can search them on your Blender, Kit, Market, or whatever. The bottom one, I'm going to make it sort of a granite, maybe. I have a granite PBR file, Shift-Control-T. When I have set it up, I'm just going to add value node like that and connect it to the scale value, and then just increase the value so it's nice and nicely distributed. Let me go into my viewport shading view. So you have this sort of artifaction here. You can also unclick or let's say deselect your subdivision so it's simple instead of cut and Clark, and it's going to take off that pinching for a bit. Now let's open up the Boolean, and you can see that the Boolean has moved because we haven't moved our sphere. Now there's a very simple way of mitigating this. I'm just going to select my initial vase, press Shift cursor to select it, which is going to put it right in the middle of my vase. Then I'm going to select my sphere, Shift S selection to cursor, and it put it right in my vase's center. I'm just going to do one thing. So with the vase difference selected, I'm just going to go into my viewport display, and instead of display as textured, I'm going to use it to display as wire so we know where our difference is. Okay, we can hide it again. Let's go into our rendered view and see how it looks like. Looks kind of cool. I mean, it's a simple setup. You can also go under your world, click on the veranda, press Ctrl-T if you have Node Wrangler enabled, of course, and then just rotate the Z so you can find a better, let's say, angle for your light. You can make it a bit more concentrated on the vase or more concentrated on the marble. Depends on what you want to achieve. But this is basically it. Let's press F12 and see what happens. Hopefully, if we've done everything correctly, this should render without any issues. So yeah, you can see the Boolean working hard for us. It's working properly. The vase, it's okay. It's a nice glass material. It's a very simple composition setup, but yeah, do try it out for yourself. You can then set up the denoisers and just do whatever you usually do for your rendering purposes. In any case, this is going to be it for this tutorial. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've learned something. As always, this is going to be a free resource file available on my Gumroad, which will be put in the description. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel because it helps me out a lot. And also let me know in the comments what you thought about the video, or if you have any questions about the techniques used in this one. In any case, I will see you in the next one.